Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a very special lunchtime edition of the Sunday Tailgate. I'm your host, Stacy Perez, and one of my very favorite parts of the Sunday Tailgate is always going over those start-sit decisions before our Sunday night matchup. But this week, what I've got coming at you is we've got two Sunday matchups. We have got the conference round of the NFL playoffs. Those of you that are out there still doing your DFS lineups, still doing your weekly matchups for your playoff tournaments, I've got a few start-sit decisions and players for you to consider throwing in your lineups this week. So, without further ado, let's hit it off. Bills at the Chiefs. I wish this could be like a Super Bowl matchup. That would be amazing, but alas, it cannot be. Only one can make it to the big game down in New Orleans. So, who are we starting? From the Chiefs, I have got Xavier Worthy for you. He was a start for me last week as well. He has been targeted an average of 7.4 times per game since week 15. He is second only to Travis Kelce in targets all season, and he does lead the team in receiving touchdowns. Worthy is coming into this conference championship round facing a Bills defense who ranks 24th overall this season in passing yards allowed per game. And not only that, but they do tend to allow significant fantasy production to those opposing teams' pass catchers. Which leads me to our other start from Kansas City. Yes, I'm giving you more than one start for some of these teams for these matchups since we only have two more football games left before the Super Bowl, before the end of our football season. You know him, you love him. If you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, Travis Kelce, there has to be some sort of internal switch that he and Patrick Mahomes share that just gets flipped during the playoffs because they become two incredibly different, amazing players, especially fantasy wise. According to the NFL's next gen stats, Kelsey has 26 receptions, 289 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns in his playoff career versus the Bills. Now, only Jerry Rice, what is Jerry eating? I love that commercial. Is tied with Kelsey for the most receiving touchdowns by any player against a specific opponent in the postseason all time. Just another one of the many records he holds at this point. Um, who are we starting from the Bills? Our quarterback, of course, Josh Allen. He has been an absolute alien, just complete otherworldly this season. Impossible to contain. Baltimore did kind of limit his production through the air, though. In last week's divisional round, they did keep him under 150 yards passing, but they couldn't keep him out of the end zone. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Ray Davis also got in the end zone on the ground. Ravens do have one of the best rushing defenses in the league. You could probably argue that they have the best rushing defense in the league, but yet they could not stop Josh Allen. They could not stop this Baltimore or this Bills rushing attack. Look, the Chiefs' defense is stout. They are nowhere near the Ravens level, though. But they do hold opponents to the fourth lowest rushing yards per play. So that is something to kind of look out for. Now, Josh Allen has been sacked only 1.3 times per game in his 8 career matchups against Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. So just something to consider when you're looking at which quarterback should you be playing this week. Josh Allen is an excellent choice to give you potential for a ton of points. Now, James Cook is going to be my other start from Buffalo. He became the first Bills player with 100 rushing yards in a playoff game since Thurman Thomas did it back in 1995. He and Thomas are the only Bills players to have both 100 yards and a touchdown in a playoff game in Buffalo history. Those are, again, thanks to those NFL Next Gen stats that we love so much. Cook posted 120 yards against the Broncos. That team during the regular season allowed only the third fewest yards on the ground to opposing teams' backs. And against Baltimore, which we've already talked about their rushing defense, Cook was slightly limited, but he did still see half of the team's total carries. And overall, this year, he has been running back 10 in fantasy points per game. Take its volume, take its high production levels this season, put those together. This makes Cook, for me, an easy start this week. Now, who are we sitting from this matchup? I've got two guys for you. They play the same position. They're both Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. Don't want really any part of that Chiefs rushing attack at all. They only managed 50 yards total, 5-0, against the Texans in the divisional round. Hunt's trip into the end zone is really the only thing that saved his fantasy day, putting him at 11.4 total points per game, and that was in a very generous full point PPR format. Um, Now, Pacheco obviously has struggled to really kind of be that guy that we all know and love and expect him to be, that angry runner running like he's just mad at the ground. He hasn't been that guy since his return from injury. Hopefully he is, get some more time to kind of recover and next season is back to normal. But so far in the playoffs, not somebody I'm looking at starting right now. His production since week 14 has just steadily decreased. They are going to face a Bills defense really that kind of shut down the Broncos backfield in wildcard weekend. And they did what they could with Derrick Henry. They limited him to under 100 yards and a touchdown, which numbers for Derrick Henry, considered low, would be considered, career numbers for probably a lot of other guys. But considering that back in week 4, Derrick Henry lit them up for 200 yards plus some scores, both through the air and on the ground, I would say that keeping him under 100 yards was a success for anybody. Now, moving on, Commanders are going to be in Philadelphia facing the Eagles. Hopefully, there is not a blizzard in the middle of this game again. But who are we starting from the Commanders? I am starting tight end Zach Ertz. He has made himself completely invaluable to rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels this year, as is pretty much often the case when you've got a rookie at quarterback, you've got a veteran at tight end. Those guys really kind of go together like Forrest and Jenny, like peas and carrots, right? During the regular season, the Eagles have allowed 9.4 fantasy points per game to opposing teams' tight ends. And another fun next gen stat for us is that Ertz has received a team high 25 targets on 87 routes run inside the red zone this season, including in the playoffs this year, which has resulted in a 28.7 target rate, highest among the Commanders' receivers. Diami Brown, here's another one for you. So far, he hauled in, last game against the Lions, hauled in 6 receptions, 98 yards. Again, assuming we're not going to have a blizzard, throwing's not going to be limited. You're going to expect him to continue to play that field stretcher role. Over the last 2 games, he has caught 5 of 7 downfield targets for 141 yards and a touchdown. He is that guy. You can bet they are going to be all over Terry McLaurin, so other options are going to have to open up for Daniels. Diami Brown is one that I feel comfortable starting given his production the last 2 playoff games. Now, A.J. Brown, right? Hasn't been great. He's been reading his self-help books on the sidelines. Last 2 matchups against the Commanders, though. This is what I want to draw your attention to. He was targeted 23 times, resulting in 162 yards and a touchdown. Look, we get it. His playoff production so far has not been great, but he is a stud receiver. He's an elite receiver. It is hard to keep those guys down consistently and for very long. And so, given those 2 things, given that this is really a divisional matchup, this is going to be the 3rd time these teams play each other this year. They're familiar with each other. Brown has had high production in those previous matchups. He's going to be worth a start for me in my lineup this week. Who are we sitting? I got 2 guys for you, and this may seem like, you've heard it once, you've heard it before, but it bears repeating because the numbers are what they are. First one is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. He is making that sit list once again. Once again, I am telling you to sit Brian Robinson Jr. And look, I knew it kind of blew up last week. He had 2 touchdowns, seemed to be the Brian Robinson of old that we expected, that we saw at the beginning of the season. But I'll tell you what, the Eagles defense is a lot better than the Lions defense. Okay. They're allowing the 2nd lowest fantasy points this year to opposing teams running backs. Not only that, but their run defense is allowing the 5th lowest rushing yards over expected, a negative 0.13 per play allowed. So not great stats what Brian Robinson has to face against the Eagles run defense this week. Who are we sitting from the Eagles? Once again, I'm telling you to sit Jalen Hurts. Look, I get it. I know he's got the most rushing touchdowns. And is there always a chance that he could get in the air for quarterbacks, rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks? And yeah, like I said, there's a chance that he gets in the end zone. And for sure, that definitely can happen. But that's how the Commanders are going to have to make Hurts beat you, because he certainly isn't doing it with his arm through the air. The last 2 games, he has thrown for a total of 28 times, not per game. That's combined. His long touchdown last week really kind of saved his fantasy numbers. And honestly, I'm not really sure why the Rams couldn't stop him. He did look really slow getting into that end zone. Um, he's only managed to do it once so far this postseason, and that was that last game against the Rams. So for me, that's going to be just another reason why I'm looking at other quarterbacks, either a Jaden Daniels, a Josh Allen to start this week if I've got to do a weekly matchup, if I'm picking another quarterback to go with for this week. So, guys, we're going to keep it short and sweet. There's only 2 matchups, only so many guys to talk about, but that is going to do it for us here at the Player Profiler Sunday Tailgate. If you enjoyed the show, if you had a good time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow over on social media. You can find Player Profiler at Roto Underworld. You can find me at Stacy_Perez 83. Don't forget, this information is also available in article format over on playerprofiler.com, along with some amazing other articles from everybody here at Player Profiler. And before I go, I'm going to give you all some promo codes for the Fast Draft app and the Player Profiler site. If you haven't checked out the Fast Draft app yet, highly encourage you to go do it. We've only got a little bit of time left here in the NFL season for you to jump on that. If you go in, it's 100% first-time deposit match up to $25 with my code Stacy, and you can put in a winning roster in 5 minutes. It's real quick, perfect for you to do during your lunch hour. Get those lineups in, still have a good time with fantasy, not having to spend a ton of time putting together a lineup. If you are on the Player Profiler site and you are looking to get that all-in package, you can use my code Stacy, STACY. It's going to give you $25 off of that. So great deals. Please use those promo codes. Again, Stacy spelled the right way, STACY. Guys, I will be back next week to give you my Super Bowl matchups, our start-sit decisions. If you've got any pools that you're doing through work, you've got one more week of those playoff tournaments that allow you to do a weekly lineup, I am here for you. I've got that info for you. But until then, I will see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.